quick blue fork of lightning lit up the waste of desolate and tumbling waters. Then thunder exploded, loud and long, like the sound of a mountain falling. It began to rain, a sudden, sharp rain. Water trickled down the back of his neck. He felt Granny moving. She was covering Lulu with her coat. He rowed faster, peering into the rain, wanting to reach safety before the boat caught too much water. Another 50 yards or so, and he would be among the houses. I was introduced to John Wilson's work about a decade ago. John Wilson is a renowned 20th century Black visual artist who worked in a number of mediums. He wanted to visualize the tragic importance of effects that white racism had on Black lived conditions and was strongly influenced by Richard Wright. Richard Wright was one of the most renowned Black writers of the 20th century. He wrote a number of books, Black Boy, Native Son, but he's known primarily for his unflinching view of Black life and the impacts of racism on the Black psyche, particularly the Black male psyche. Wilson's etchings, the Richard Wright Suite, were based on the story Down by the Riverside, published in 1938 for an illustrated book in 2001. The first etching, Journey of the Man Family, appears opposite the title page. The protagonist is Man, M-A-N-N, and he's a Black tenant farmer. And he's also the patriarch of a family. His wife, Lulu, pregnant with their second child, his mother-in-law, Granny, and his son, Pee-wee. The second illustration is titled Embarkation. Man and his community knows that a flood is approaching, likely to breach the levees that are surrounding them. Lulu's pregnancy has become complicated. So they board this boat that was stolen by a friend of his from a white man whose name is Hartfield. Wilson's interpretation of the story really centers the river itself, but it doesn't seem to pose the same threat that Wright describes in the novella. It seems beautiful. This image is called Light in the Window. We see Man steering the boat while Lulu lays in her mother's arms. There's an actual light in the window of a house. And it's interesting because from the previous image, the white house functions as a light in the distance. It's like their destination continues to move, and it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, for them to reach. When they're on their journey, they encounter the owner of the boat. They get into a fight, and Man kills Hartfield. There were two etchings Wilson created that did not appear in the illustrated book. This etching is Death of Lulu. Man and his family reach the American Red Cross to get Lulu help. Unfortunately, Lulu dies during childbirth. And so having lost Lulu and his unborn child, Man has to escape. This image is called Man Attacked. When Hartfield's family identify Man, we see 4 white men who have ambushed Man in the center of the image. And it's not clear from Wilson's previous images why they're attacking him, which leaves it to us with our understandings of racial violence, that Man is being persecuted because of his blackness. 2 young boys look on, watching this spectacle, reminiscent of families who would bring their children and food for lynching as a form of entertainment, but also to teach about power. This image, called The Death of Man, is the final etching that doesn't appear in the book. They shoot him down as he approaches the river, and he dies on the banks of the Mississippi River. The brightness of the blue contrasts with man's dark body, dressed in white, almost like he has been baptized. There's a sense of relief and deliverance that man has laid down his burdens, to take a lyric from the song Down by the Riverside. The closer that you get to the image, the more that you can see the features of his face. And so Wilson took great care to, in this moment of man's demise, actually see him as a full human being. Wilson read the story in the 1940s, but he actually didn't make the etchings until 2001. He chose to illustrate the story because, as it says in John Wilson's afterword, because of Wright's vivid, dramatic setting, the novella is thought to have been inspired by the Great Flood of 1927. Perpetual rains pushed the Mississippi River to more than 30 feet in height. The storm surged, fractured close to 150 levees between Illinois and Louisiana. The official death count was 246, but it's believed that more Black deaths were unaccounted for. Hurricane Katrina, which we're commemorating the 20th anniversary of, is a story that's very similar. In fact, each year, we unfortunately, in this era of climate change, have these weather events where there's large-scale death and destruction from flooding. What Richard Wright captured in his novella, what John Wilson captured in the Richard Wright Suite, is this ongoing story of environmental catastrophe and the particular impacts that it has on Black communities. But what stands out to me is the story that it's telling us about the way that our society is ordered. And it's from that perspective that really inspired John Wilson that persists.